Hello, everyone. You are listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast. I am Jordan Hall, and as always, I am joined by the wonderful Brooke Destra. We are at the Flyers Training Center in Voorhees, New Jersey. The team wrapped up practice today with its newest addition, Jamie Drysdale. And Brooke, it's still hard to believe, but Cutter Gauthier is no longer in the Flyers organization. The team's top prospect was traded Monday night during the first period of the Flyers-Penguins game. It was a stunner.
I'm just going to go right off the bat. You said it. We were right next to each other in the press box last night, and you said the Flyers just traded Cutter. And I said, okay, that's a really nice joke. It's really funny. And then we turn around and head of Flyers PRs right behind us, and they're like, Danny Briere is speaking first intermission. And we were like, oh, like it was really real. It happened. It was crazy. And of course it's happening. It was like less than 7 minutes into the first period of Flyers Penguins. I still am trying to wrap my head around the fact that there was a game last night. I feel like that was so thrown on the back burner that it's been a crazy 24 hours for the Flyers and anybody who is around the organization. But yeah, it's crazy. It's a shock, and we got a lot to talk about.
A ton to talk about. Brooke, I don't think I ever can recall a Flyers-Penguins game in Philadelphia that simply did not feel like it mattered.
No.
It was all about Cutter Gauthier and the team that is rebuilding and has talked so much about Cutter Gauthier being a cornerstone to this rebuild, no longer in the organization. Turned out, according to Danny Briere, Gauthier did not want to sign here. He did not want to play in Philadelphia. It was just a crazy turn of events because this is a kid that talked about the Flyers and wanting to be here. He was gung-ho about coming to Philadelphia, 5th overall draft pick in the 2022 draft.
He said he was meant to be a Flyer.
Meant to be a Flyer.
You don't just pull that quote out of thin air.
Yeah.
You know?
And we don't see players or people really turn down the Flyers. You don't really see young players turn down their organization that drafted them often. It just doesn't happen often. Mm-hmm. Typically, kids are just happy to be drafted, and they're ready to start wherever they go. This was shocking. Brooke, how do you balance fans probably being disappointed, but also spinning it into a positive of that they got a nice player in Jamie Drysdale and a pick? How do you feel about it? Are you in between? Are you one side or another?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely valid to have some level of frustration. I mean, you look at the Flyers prospects, and you've been saying for, since they've been drafted that Gauthier and Michkov were going to be two very pivotal poignant moments and players that once they came and were with the Flyers, like that's when you want the Flyers to be ready for a cup run. So now it's like, okay, you lose one of those elements, you lose a really great shot with Cutter that people were excited for. I mean, this whole season, I would watch the Flyers, they're battling in, they're staying really close games. They're winning. Right now, there's a really great chance that they make the playoffs this year, which is a crazy thing to talk about. But you would go on social media after these games and being like, man, the Flyers are great right now. Just wait till Cutter gets here.
Yeah.
Just wait till Cutter gets here. So it's really, I don't know. It's a really interesting dynamic. It does stink. It is a little bit of a setback in terms of, offensive contributions, but in return, you get Drysdale, he is a great, young, fast defenseman, right-handed shot who has the potential to be really offensively minded and just immediately come in and contribute to the Flyers, where it's like he comes in and it kind of almost fits perfectly for the sense of the Flyers in a rebuild, where he's a young guy, he fits the mold, he can kind of be a part of them building this out really. So while it is very frustrating and disappointing for a lot of fans that you lose somebody in Gauthier, you're getting a great player, and we got a draft pick in second round draft pick in 2025. So you have to look at all the cards stacked up, and if he didn't want to play in Philly, now is the time to move him because he just had a great run in juniors. His stock was high.
Yeah.
It just made sense.
Yeah, the Flyers felt like they were ready to cash in on Cutter Gauthier's value. He shined at the World Juniors. He was tied for the tournament lead in points. He led them to a gold medal. That now was the time, and I couldn't agree more with that. The Flyers had been trying to make this work since May, when they found out that Gauthier, for some reason, changed his mind and didn't want to play here, according to Danny Briere. So they had tried to make it work. And they even sent Briere and Keith Jones to Sweden to even try to talk to him one more time, maybe make it a last-ditch effort to sway this kid and explain their side of the story and try to get him to come to Philadelphia. But, Brooke, I think there's still no sugarcoating it. This is disappointing for the Flyers rebuild.
Sure.
This is a guy that they used the 5th overall pick on. It's a guy that's one of the best players in college hockey. He's just oozing with upside. And he's a guy the team had to lose 56 games for in a dreadful season to get. And now he's just not going to be a part of it. So I think there's some confusion. As much as there is frustration probably for the Flyers and fans, I think it's even more confounding. People are just trying to think, why did this kid not want to come here? And probably until he explains his side of the story, we won't truly know.
Right. Lots of things are just kind of unanswered questions right now. And you can speculate as much as you want, but until he and his camp come forward to just kind of clear the air and be like, well, this is what's going on, everything is speculation, you know? I do think that it is really baffling. And everybody has a right to be curious right now as to why he went from, I was meant to be a Flyer, to not even taking the time to speak to such well-respected names and faces in not even the organization, but the NHL as a whole, with Danny Briere and Keith Jones and Patrick Sharp and John LeClaire. Like, these are names, like, prestigious names in the league, and to just kind of blow them off and be like, I don't want to have anything to do with the Flyers is a really crazy, like, I almost hope that we're missing something, because this level of disconnect is very, it's crazy and it's concerning. And what the heck happened? What happened?
I think so many people are asking that question.
Like, at this, because we're all sitting here just as baffled as everybody listening. What is going on? How did we get here? You go from having one of these, the top, like you said, top college prospects in America, just waiting. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, once he gets to the Flyers, it's going to be great. We're going to be at the peak of this rebuild. They're going to go for a push, like steady playoff runs every single season. And now it's poof, it's gone. It's crazy.
Yeah, Tyron Johnson on 97.5, the Fanatic, said the same thing. He said, what the heck happened? And I think a lot of people are asking that question. Where did this go? How did it get there? And I was really blown away when Danny Briere said that the communication kind of evaporated.
Right.
That he, Gauthier and his representation were kind of tough to get in touch with. I really think the Flyers made a full court press and tried to do everything they could. And
They went to Sweden.
They went to Sweden.
They went to Sweden for the gold medal game of World Juniors to be able to be there for him.
Even going to Sweden, they had difficulty getting in touch with him. It really is. It's just confusing. It's truly shocking in that regard. It does happen. Players don't have to sign with the team that drafted them, but just given kind of the mystery to it all and trying to still wrap your head around it, it is very confusing and I bet frustrating for many folks, Brooke.
For sure.
Celebrity cook Steve Martirano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martirano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations for Martirano's Prime on Open Table. Brooke, this development, how much does this make what the Flyers do with Matvei Michkov that much more important? It's kind of ironically funny. Maybe I can say this from a reporter's perspective, but there was always so much concern about, was Michkov too much of a risk? How are they going to get him over here?
Well, that's all we talked about leading up to the draft. I'm like, yes, Michkov is incredible, but I was like, stay away from him.
Right.
Because we don't know. And now it's like,
when's he going to get here? Is he going to get here? And Cutter Gauthier seemed like the slam dunk. I mean, this is a kid that's an American kid that's here in the country, and he's playing college hockey, and he can decide to go pro whenever he wants. And
they just Uno reversed us. Like,
here we
really,
are. Gauthier is
really
not
bad.
here, and Michkov is now, to me, the vocal point. The Flyers need to make sure they do everything in their power to keep that relationship strong and get him here.
Yeah.
That's going to be a challenge, is making sure young players don't second guess at all about coming here. I don't think they're going to have any concerns. Personally, I think the Flyers, this could be a one-off. It could just be something that happened. Maybe we'll find out later why it happened. But I still think people are going to look at the Flyers organization. They're going to look at the people that are running it. They're going to respect it, and I think they're going to want to come here, Brooke. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I like you said. I think it's a one-off as well. It's one of those crazy, bizarre situations. Like it's something that, it happened so quickly in the moment during the game on Monday night that, we got to the training center today and we're still processing it. We're going to wake up tomorrow in preparation for the Canadiens game and still be, processing everything. So it is really interesting to see what is really, going on. It's just, trying to figure everything out.
I know, Brooke, we got here and we're heading on to the opposite rink right behind us. If you're watching on YouTube, we have a rink behind us in Voorhees, and that's where Jamie Drysdale first hit the ice. And it was still kind of crazy to think. Jamie Drysdale's here, and Cutter Gauthier is no longer a member of the organization. It truly is a whirlwind.
And what a day! He said he hopped on a flight 5:45 this morning, on his way to Philly, right here Voorhees, and it's just.
He seemed like a good sport, Brooke.
You could tell he was flustered.
You could tell he was tired.
So.
I mean, flown in at 5:45. It wasn't even 24 hours since he learned that he would no longer be playing for the Ducks. And he's only 21 years old. He's the youngest player now on the Flyers roster, even younger than Tyson Forrester. He's also 21, but he is younger. So he's now suddenly, boom, a guy that they're going to rely on in their rebuild, and he's trying to get acclimated. But seemed like a good kid, bro. What were your initial impressions just hearing him talk and seeing him practice?
Yeah, I mean, first thing, it's crazy because obviously you don't speak to him until after the practice. But, he explained his travel day and, he said his mind was in a blender, when everything was going on. And, you feel for the kid and you relate to him. You're happy that he's in Philly. But knowing the travel day that he had and the fact that, he was out on the ice at noon. So I was like, man, this kid can skate. Yeah. I was like, and you knew that he was a quick mover. He's such a great, A-class, skater. Yeah. And that's something that, I'm really thrilled that the Flyers also acquired in the sense. But yeah, I mean, first, impressions, you said he was a really great sport. He was happy to be here. He said great things. He said that once the moves were made, once he hung up the phone with Anaheim's general manager, and he got off the phone with Danny Briere as well. He said his phone was blowing up from, players throughout the league and within Philly being like, Philly's a world-class organization. Welcome to Philly, great, welcoming him with open arms. Yeah. And I think that that's all you can ask. And also spoke very highly on John Tortorella and saying, you get situated, we'll figure things out. But you get acclimated to being in Philly, getting yourself settled, and we will go from there. And I think that that's really great right off the bat from Torts with, any type of trade acquisition, but also somebody who's still so young. He, being in Anaheim, probably felt so well suited there, and, just being able to just kind of pick up and whoop. He thought he was going on a 2-week road trip with the Ducks, and now he's a Philadelphia Flyer. Things changed very quickly. And it's also the time of the year where you're like, man, I really hope a crazy trade happens to spice things up, within the league. That typically doesn't happen until, days leading up to the trade deadline. But talk about a crazy trade that threw every single person in hockey on social media to divulge what's going on. Yeah. It was a crazy day, just breaking everything down and hearing everybody's opinions. You have former players, you have current players, you have all fans from every single team in the league chiming in. It was just an incredible, everyone was talking about the Flyers trade. And I was like, well, we're all right. Let's see what's going on. It was a crazy day. Somebody ranked it as one of the top 5 moments in Flyers Twitter X history. And I think I have to agree. I do.
I know. I always try to look back at certain things that I've gone through while covering the team. And I've talked to general managers in that same spot that we've talked to Briere, where it's mid-game. And But I can't ever really recall something quite like this that was absolutely stunning, where a prospect said he didn't want to play here, and all of a sudden, yeah, Flyers Penguins game took a backseat completely.
And it wasn't even, I mean, listen, it was a rough game for the Flyers, but it was a chippy game.
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember we're all glued to our laptops during the game, and we would be looking up, and there's some sort of scrum here, and there's some sort of scrum on the other side of the ice. And like, what is going on? Like, we were all just so, I felt like we were all like in such a daze.
Yeah.
Because everything was happening so quickly. So it's crazy. Like I feel like I still need to go back and rewatch Flyers Penguins. Like I feel like it was right there, and I still feel like I couldn't pay attention to it. My brain was like running a mile a minute.
Yeah, and the Flyers are going to try to shift gears now, and they're going to focus on Jamie Drysdale and the return they got in the trade. Drysdale at practice today was with Travis Sanheim, so potentially that could be a top pair for the Flyers. Something they maybe try. It's looking like Drysdale could be in game action Wednesday night, Brooke. If not, then absolutely over the weekend for a back-to-back. But they're going to give him opportunity. I think they're going to have him play to his strengths, feature him, put him on a power play, give him minutes. I think if he looks a little overwhelmed, they'll tighten the reins a little bit and not be unfair to him, but they're going to give him a shot. And Brooke, in my mind, as disappointing as it is and as confusing as it is about Gauthier not being here, I thought it was important for the Flyers to get a player back, not just picks.
Sure, 100%.
I think if the Flyers got a first-round pick in 2025 or even in the summer, I think some people would have been like, well, that's another step back, though. It's going to be more patience required. And the Flyers are all about patience, but I think it was important that they got high-end talent back now that they can see on the ice now. I think it eases the pain for Flyers fans a little bit. The Flyers can put out a kid and say, hey, this is what we pivoted to, and you're going to like this player. Watch him now. And I think there's a ton of upside. They needed high-end talent in return because Gauthier was high-end talent. He was one of their first picks where they said, we need more high-end talent. They lost him, but they did get some high-end talent in return. Do you like the upside with Drysdale?
Oh, my God, yeah. And like I said, I think that there's frustration warranted in losing one of your top prospects. However, they gained a great player and the draft.
And the pick.
Like you said, I fully agree that to make this move kind of, settle with Flyers fans a little bit better, that they needed to have an actual acquisition that could make an immediate impact. And that's what I really feel like he's going to do. He's probably going to run point on the power play. Do you think he's going to run on first or second unit? That's still undecided. But if you want to get full potential out of him, you're really going to throw him right on the point and figure things out. Now, there's a lot of discussion about him changing his style of play because Anaheim plays a man-on-man versus, zone. But, he's willing to take on the challenge, and he's so young that, the ability to adapt to that, I think, is, a challenge that he's going to welcome. But I think that once he really gets established with this team on the ice, I'm not saying he's going to come out and be 100% against the Canadiens because that's so unrealistic.
Yeah.
But you give him until maybe after the All-Star break. You give him a really great run. The Flyers are going to go out on the road after they wrap up the 4-game homestand Wednesday night. Being able to bond with some of the new players. He's got a great relationship already with Cam York and Scott Lawton, and he said he's played with Nick Delorier in the past as well. And it's great that he's got those relationships, but to be able to build off of that almost immediately from, joining this new team, I think is a huge bonus for this team right now. And I am just, I hope everything I can't imagine how he's feeling.
Yeah.
So I just hope that, Philly does welcome him with open arms, because if you go and you look at some of his, highlight reel worthy moments, he's a really great skater. And I feel like everybody at NBC Sports Philly has been using this term very frequently in the past 24 hours. He is a unicorn with when it comes to defensemen right now. He's a great right-handed defenseman. He's got great upside. He's got great speed. He's a great skater. I mean, it's a great acquisition that the Flyers made. And I think that that's something that you just have to keep telling yourself to kind of push the pain of losing your top prospect that everybody has been waiting for. So
the Road to Victory bus tour is back. Come rally around the birds with exclusive swag and special guests, plus a chance to win tickets to a future game. Presented by Ticketmaster, go to NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com for the full schedule. Brooke, yes, and you will be on that bus, by the way.
I will be on that bus Thursday.
Catch Brooke on the bus.
Brooke is going to be on the bus. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
Come out and support. Listen, I know the Eagles have had a really rough stretch, but this should be a really fun day, a really fun event. Come and get some free swag.
Yeah.
Everybody loves a rally towel, and then we have a kickoff party as well at Wicked Wolf later that night with a live Q&A with all of our Eagles expert analysts. And, it should be a really fun day. Ask them the good, the bad, and the ugly about the birds as we, go into the wild card. So
yeah, exactly. You can be there and still be realistic, right?
About
where the Eagles are.
We're gonna have fun, and if we're going down with the ship, we go down with the ship. It's
Exactly.
At least we're the bus. I don't know.
That's right.
We'll just figure it out.
So Brooke will be on the bus, but things are pushing forward, of course, for the Flyers, whether people want to or not, given the disappointment of Cutter Gauthier not being here. But Brooke, I do think there's a ton of upside with Jamie Drysdale, and I really just hope people are patient. And I say that because he is only 21, and defensemen by far take the longest to develop. Look at Travis Sanheim, for example. He was a former first-round pick, and he really hasn't hit his prime until now, 26, 27 years old. Defensemen can take till around that age to, I think, really click and find it here at the NHL level. So Drysdale is only 21, ready shot, and he's already got 123 games of experience, which impresses me for that young of an age to already have that experience. I think there's going to be some lumps. I think there's going to be some waves in his development, but I do think there's a future there. But no doubt about it, I think there's some pressure on Drysdale and really Danny Briere. It's a big trade where the Flyers needed to get something back in return, and people are going to, whether they knew the Flyers' hands were tied or not, they're going to judge this trade. But I think Drysdale's got a good head on his shoulders, and I really think Briere, I thought, pivoted pretty well. I thought the Flyers really pivoted as best as they could. I'm not sure if they could have made out a ton better in the trade, but it's still going to be, I think, a deal that's going to be judged for quite some time.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you really can't fully evaluate the trade until, it sounds crazy, but a couple years down the line when you have both of these guys fully established in the league. Like, you really don't know what Drysdale's going to evolve into, and you really don't know what Gauthier is going to evolve into because he has yet to play an NHL game. Yeah. So there's a lot of open-ended questions about why he didn't want to sign with the Flyers, and there's a lot of open-ended questions that won't be resolved for a very long time. So patience is not a word that is in a lot of people's dictionaries right now when it comes to the Flyers rebuild. So I also hope that people just kind of, let it unfold. Let's see what is going to happen. We're all sitting here waiting for it as well. You genuinely don't know how things are going to play out. And it's, it's a little exciting. It's a little scary, but, you kind of have to close the chapter on one side and, look forward to what the Flyers, there's this fly. I'm going to get this fly.
He wants to be in this podcast.
He wants to be in the yes, our nice little bonus host. This little fly that's been around us all day.
We're battling through the elements on this Flyers Talk podcast.
Yes.
But Brooke, my final point. It's so funny. I feel like, did I foresee this coming? No, but there were still some small signs, subtle signs that, once it happened, once I found out, like we all did, that Gauthier was not coming here, I was like, those little things made sense. I had heard that Gauthier was not taking, a ton of interview requests from Philly-based reporters, and I was like, that's a little interesting. I know he's a top prospect, and sometimes they get a lot of interview requests, and maybe they can say no to some and only accept the others. But I just, most college kids are willing to talk for a phone interview, especially when it's a positive piece about their development. When he didn't come to development camp, I was like, that's a little odd. Briere seemed very disappointed when he talked to us that he was not here. And then when Keith Jones was going to Sweden, that's the boss. That's the guy that probably you would think would stay back here and not have to go unless it was something that needed to be addressed. And one other thing, when John Tortorella mentioned and referenced the Mad Russian, Matvei Mishkov, when he was talking about the future, he didn't bring up Cutter Gauthier.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's also a little interesting. So just funny little signs that, led to.
You don't think about it.
You don't think about it until
it happens.
right.
And then you look back and you're like, oh, this really has been, bubbling all like this whole time. Like it's been well over a year since last year's development camp. So it's really last year's World, not development camp.
Yes.
It's just been a crazy, everything's kind of like unraveling and unfolding. And I feel like you can't stay off of social media. Jordan, this fly, let me tell you.
The fly probably wants us to wrap up this podcast so we can get out of its way. But no, long story short, Brooke, you saw little signs and you could actually connect the dots once we, of course, found out that Gauthier was not going to be here. But in the back of my head, in the back of my head, I was like, are they having any difficulty trying to get him signed? Obviously, he still needed to sign. It wasn't like a done deal or anything. He just figured everything was fine, just given what he said at the draft. But things weirdly got quiet. He didn't talk a whole lot. And here we are. Cutter Gauthier, Brooke, no longer in the Flyers organization. Jamie Drysdale is. And the Flyers have a 2025 second-round pick as well.
Whew.
And we'll see where this season goes. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, is game 41. That's the halfway mark of the season, Brooke. We'll see where this Flyer season goes. We'll see where the rebuild goes. But certainly never a dull day here covering the Flyers. And we'll have it all covered moving forward on this Flyers Talk podcast. What a week.
It's only Tuesday.
And it's only Tuesday. But Brooke Destra, thank you so much for joining me here at the Flyers Training Center. Great to see you. Great to chat with you. A major thank you to Ben Berry, our podcast producer and guru, for always being flexible with our time. And Flyers fans, of course, always thank you so much for listening, to the latest Flyers Talk podcast.
Jordan didn't get a lot of sleep last night because of the trade.
I don't think any of us did. Yes. So messing up some words, but we'll have the words right next time.
You know what we mean.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening. Wherever you get your Flyers Talk podcast, please rate and listen, and we cannot wait to talk to you next time.